Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
David Waters of Gators Breakdown here with a special edition of Gators Breakdown, Championship Rewind, 2006 edition. Take a look back at the 2006 National Championship with Tate Casey, Brandon James, of course part of that team. In 2006, Urban Meyer's second year brings Florida their second national championship. There were a lot of questions going into that year. Second-year coach Urban Meyer, would that offense work with Chris Leak at the helm? What role would Tim Tebow play in the offense? Could Florida ride its stout defense to a conference or national championship? They certainly did. Beat Ohio State 41-14 in Glendale, Arizona. So we take a look back at that game. One-loss regular season. Florida goes in that game going against Heisman Trophy winner Troy Smith and a Buckeye team that many thought would just handle Florida for another national championship for them. Was not the case. Florida upsets Ohio State. So we'll get a look at it from Tate Casey and Brandon James. So we'll get started. 2006 national championship game versus Ohio State. Man, the team had heard for a month that they didn't belong in that game and couldn't hang with Heisman winner Troy Smith and Ohio State. How much was that, you guys hearing for a month, a motivating factor going into that game?
Yeah, I think for us it was more just eye on the prize and the mindset we had the whole year. Obviously, we heard all the things that were said about us not belonging in that game, and to us, I think the biggest thing was we knew exactly where we belonged. We knew what kind of work we put in, what kind of preparation we had put in, and so it just drove us a little bit more than what we were already pushing ourselves.
It motivated the team big time. From my freshman year, I can vividly remember, us having a senior field defense, a lot of upperclassmen who went through a lot with the coaching change and everything like that. So being able to finish a career off in the national title game, and then now, we played the schedule we played, and then, you're hearing you don't even stand a chance because they have a Heisman winner because, they've had the season they've had up until that point. I mean, everybody was motivated, and as freshmen, we just kind of followed the lead of the older guys and the upperclassmen and kind of, we're just as motivated, we're just as hungry.
Did you feel like playing in the SEC that season prepared you guys? You had some knockdown, drag-out games all throughout the season with Alabama, LSU, Arkansas in the SEC championship game, a dramatic win at Tennessee as well. Did the SEC prepare you guys to go against Ohio State?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And, with us, watching film and leading up to the national championship game, I think that we liked where we stood in that matchup in regards to speed and talent on both sides of the ball. Especially on offense. We'd heard a lot about Ohio State's defense. We'd seen them on film, a great group of hard-nosed players, but, we felt our team had a lot of grit. That 2006 team was full of grit and a lot of talent. So, we liked where we stood. I think the biggest thing for us is we felt that nobody was really giving us a chance, and that chip on our shoulder kind of grew week by week leading up to that game.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think my freshman year was kind of the jump start of what the SEC is today. I think our national title, my freshman year was again the jump start to the SEC being as dominant as it is now. And I think that was the year where you seen the recruiting was just different. The game play week to week was just different. For as just your conference schedule was just different that year. I mean, you talking about playing Auburn and close games with Vanderbilt and all kinds of teams that were, on paper not predicted to be very good. But when you're in the SEC, everybody's good. Everybody's ready to play. So I think, again, that was the year that kind of stamped as the, the beginning of the dominance of the SEC.
Did the stature of the game change Meyer and the way he approached the game or the coaching staff just in general? Could you tell it was a bigger game to him, or was it just business as usual with him?
I'm going to tell you what, with that staff, the one thing I will say, and with that team, there wasn't such thing as a bigger game than the next. And the one thing about that 06 team that I always tell people was, not only did it have grit and talent, but it had a bunch of guys that were just so hungry to win a championship. And when Urban came in and really, worked us through the mental aspect of being a team and a championship caliber team and what exactly that consisted of, that's when we really started getting that cohesive unit. Urban doesn't change. right? Urban doesn't change. You could play a 2-9 team for a second week of the season. You could play a 12-0 team for a championship game, and he approaches it the same way. And I think that is one of the key factors for us as a team and how we approach every single game, because it wasn't necessarily about just winning week to week. It was we were going to be the best in the country in preparation. We're going to be the best in practice, and we're going to be the best in the game, and we're going to end up winning no matter what we're putting ourselves up against.
Well, if doubt crept into your guys' mind, it may have been after the opening kickoff. Ted again races that kickoff back. What's the thought on the sideline? What are the coaches telling you guys when Ted Ginn's racing down the sideline and it's 7-0, 15 seconds into the game?
For me, it was funny because I think a lot of guys in the special teams unit, guys that were on special teams meetings week to week, we knew what our game plan always was for kickoff and kickoff coverage. And we didn't necessarily execute the kick the way we were supposed to for the game plan. Obviously, that went against us in exact way you don't want it to, because you're relying on a number of things in our scheme on kickoff coverage. Minus a hold or a possible block in the back, which doesn't really matter. But I think the guys that have been in that film room and know exactly what we have to do to execute that play kind of saw it coming as soon as we kicked it. Because I was sitting there going, oh, guys, ain't going to be good. And, of course, they take one to the house, and Ted Ginn, obviously a phenomenal talent, and they lose him right after that, unfortunately, because of an injury on a celebration. For us, I think the biggest thing was early in the game. It had that happen fourth quarter maybe to put a dagger in us. It may have been a different feeling. But for us, you got a whole game to play, and we knew what the game plan was, and we knew how successful it could help us be. So I think the biggest thing for us is just turn around, sudden change, get the ball back, and let's go.
Exciting for me. At the same time, I was like, boy, he's really that fast, because, of course, I grew up watching ball, and I knew about Ted Ginn before I even got to college. So, you see him speed down the sideline, and, Coach Meyer's a big special teams guy, so we spent a lot of times, I remember being in a lot of meetings, him talking about we can't let him, beat us. But for myself, once he takes it back, immediately in my mind, you've known me since I was in high school, I'm immediately thinking, hey, it's my time to make a play there. All the cameras, all the eyes are going to be on me. So what can I do to kind of set my mark and kind of get the momentum going back in our direction?
Just talk about the resiliency of not backing down after that, and Chris Lee, of course, leading the offense, and a big game for him. Of course, everything he went through for a lot of you guys who were there before, but to respond, just right away on offense and pretty much getting everybody involved from the get-go.
Well, if you talk Chris, and you can talk a lot of those seniors, especially on the offensive side of the ball, Dallas Bakers of the world, the Andre Caldwells, the Jamel Cornelius, and those older group of guys that really had a lot to do with the reason we were in that position in the first place. I think I'll never forget, the first time I ever saw Emmitt Smith in person, outside of growing up and watching him play for the Cowboys, was on the sideline in that game. And right after that happened, the opening kickoff goes back for a touchdown. I think he was probably fired up more than anybody on our team in regards to don't let that even, get in your minds. You still a whole game to play type deal. And, I don't think anybody had a shred of doubt we were going to come back and throw another punch. But it was just cool to see the way we did respond. And I don't think anybody on our sideline expected any less than that.
Playing against Troy Smith and Ohio State in that offense, they were scoring points left and right going into the season. And, Florida, for this offense, did enough on offense, to get by as the season went on. You guys, found a way, no matter how ugly it may have looked in the first half. You guys found a way in the fourth quarter, put some points on the board, and get out with the victory. So there was a lot of talk that this offense wouldn't hang with Ohio State's offense, but what clicked versus Ohio State? Was it something you guys saw in preparation, or was it something not of? Of course, preparation comes into it, but what clicked that night?
Well, I think game planning throughout the whole bowl process, we felt confident that if we just did what we were good at doing, we would be fine. And again, like you said, my freshman, you talk about so many good athletes. Percy, you got CI, you got Bubba Caldwell, Dallas Baker, Jamel Cornelius, like all these guys, Chris Lee, Tebow. You got Deshaun Wynn. You got too many different threats to kind of honor, compared to, I felt like they, Troy Smith, I think they had one good running back. I can't remember his name. I know they had the freshman at the time that came in with us, Beanie Wells, correct?
Yep.
And then Ted again, but he ended up getting injured. But I just felt like we had more to offer. And if we executed and did what we did well, I mean, I think it kind of showed that night that we were tough to stop.
I think for us, it was the challenge. To be told that your manhood's on the line and that you're being challenged by a team that we felt we should be on the field with. That was the biggest thing, not only just for the offense, but for the team, right? We had heard so much about Troy Smith. You'd heard so much about an explosive offense and putting up points. Our defense was about tired of hearing it. And I can tell you right now, the guys like Brandon Seiler and Earl Everett's of the world and Reggie Nelson's, they were chomping at the bit, to take that challenge on. I think for us as an offense, I think the biggest thing was we got challenged pretty heavy up front, by John Hevesy and Steve Adazio and Urban and Dan Mullen to be that hard-nosed unit up front that controlled the tempo of the game. And when you go back and look at it, Deshaun Wynn, Tebow, Harvin, the run game that we had in that game, I mean, it's hard to deny. You rushed for 150-plus yards that game and, 3 touchdowns. Tim had a lot to do with that. Deshaun Wynn had a lot to do with that. And then you turn on the flip side of things and watch how the defense approached that game with the tenacity they played with, to limit Ohio State to under 50 rush yards and under 100 total yards. It's a complete domination on both sides of the football. And I think just a hard-nosed mentality had a lot to do with that.
There's Bubba Caldwell, there's Cornelius Ingram, there's Dallas Baker, there's Jamal Cornelius, there's yourself, Deshaun Wynn, Percy Harvin, Tim Tebow, Chris Leak. I mean, and kind of, the first guys to name off the more the skill players, to spread the ball out to so many players in this game. Was there something that was identified in preparation of, hey, let's go out there and attack them a myriad of ways? I mean, the special players Tebow and Harvin were, but that wasn't really the key of the offense until 2007, 2008. But in 2006, it seemed like, hey, we need to get everybody involved for this offense to really take off.
Yeah, and we did some things different. We kind of changed up. When you mentioned Cornelius Ingram, he became a very, very big part of our offense later in the season in 2006. That, he was an ex-quarterback. And we added him to the tight end room and the slot, and allowed him to do some things out wide at receiver, and we could shift him around. You had Billy Latsko, who, him and myself didn't really have much of a we had our role in regards to blocking, but you could utilize both of us out of the backfield or both of us in the red zone. And I think that, Urban and Dan did a really good job of trying to figure out what that role is going to be earlier in the season. And I think it really played well for us, down the road. We had a good team. And not only that, you had a 2-deep, 3-deep roster on both sides of the football that were more than capable of playing at that caliber, that championship caliber level in a big-time atmosphere, and they didn't bother them. I mean, when you look even past Jamel Cornelius and some of those guys, and you look all the way down the line, you also got to remember you had guys like Riley Cooper and Lewis Murphy playing on special teams, and the David Nelsons of the world. So a lot of guys that ended up being household names down the road, but they could easily slide right in if a guy goes down. It's next man up mentality. And there was no doubt in any of those position rooms that those guys could get the job done.
Everything definitely went right. I think, I think it was the bowl practice that we had leading up into it. Our upperclassmen did a good job of preparing us. But one of the biggest things I think Coach Meyer always preaches is just speed. I mean, our speed took over from, when Tebow's getting in and running, from when Percy's getting jet stretches, from, Bubba Caldwell getting the ball. I mean, we just had so many guys that can run. And I think the speed kind of just hit them all at once, and it was tough for them to defend.
What kind of player was Chris Leak? Of course, much was made about, can he fit an Urban Meyer system? Can that offense work with him? Then Tebow comes in 2006, and it was a needed mobile quarterback element of the offense there. I'm not sure, either one of those guys probably need to rely on each other in 2006 for you guys to get where you ultimately got in hoisting the trophy. What type of player quarterback was Chris Leak, and how do you go back and look at the rotation between him and Tebow and how that worked mentally for those guys?
I think it worked well. At sometimes I think it was tough for Chris because Chris being the type of recruit that he was coming in, him having the success he had up until his senior year, I think it might have been tough for him at times. But I think our coaching staff did a great job. Coach Mullen, Coach Meyer came up with a great plan of integrating both guys. And I don't think it took anything away from our offense. And I mean, Tebow deservingly, needed to be on the field. And he was such a good threat running wise. And me now as a coach, seeing the difference when your quarterback offers a threat to run the ball compared to when you just got a pure pocket guy back there. It's tough for a defense to handle. So I think we needed that year, especially with what we're producing from the as a running back standpoint. I don't think we're just a dominant team from the running back standpoint. So we needed an extra oomph. And I think the quarterback run brought that to our team. And I think Tebow did a good job of capitalizing on it.
Chris, to me, very similar to how Tim was, student of the game. Chris was a very dedicated student of the game. He was one of those guys that was always getting his mind, his body exactly where it needed to be the captain and to be the leader. And I think, obviously he knew his role, knew with Tim coming in that was going to be a good shakeup for us. They're going to give us some run capabilities that maybe Chris not necessarily tailored for, but at the same time, he was one of those guys that did anything he needed to do for his team. And so I think when a lot of people talk about Chris Leak, I think they fail to mention really how much ego he dropped at the door, in order to do exactly what we needed to do to win championship level football games. And, obviously Tim comes in and changes college football forever in 2007 and 2008. And it really takes a lot of shadow that's casted on Chris Leak. But I think a lot of people fail to realize just exactly how great a season he had, for being a guy who wasn't necessarily made for that system, but he was a student of the game. He made it work.
The sideline had to have a lot of fun going out there and watching that defense play that night. Oh. They harassed Troy Smith all night long. Was there, in leading up to that game, was there anything you guys did in preparation to help the defense? What did you guys do on offense? And I know scout team plays and stuff into that, but what did you guys do to help that defense get prepared for that offense?
Well, it was a lot of drag out. Urban was a big proponent of one-on-one. First team versus first team scrimmaging and inside drills and blitz pickup drills. A lot of that, you're not getting off where you're only, scout squad versus a ones, right? A lot of teams will say we need to preserve our unit, our first team, and playing against the scout, just make sure we're polished up. Unless things have changed in the last 10, 12 years, I can say honestly, you weren't getting away with that. I tore 4 ligaments in my ankle the first day of padded practice for the national championship game in inside drill, ones versus ones. And there were some serious battles going on in the trenches. We had a lot of guys that they thought that was the best way for us to win that game, and it completely have a huge feeling that was. The defense knew what they were facing with the offense. We knew Vernon Golson and Malcolm Jean, because a lot of the defensive guys they had on that Ohio State team were solid guys, guys that were going to go play in the NFL for a long time. But we also felt we had a lot of guys that were going to play in the NFL for a long time as well. And so for us, I think the biggest thing is we were going to go just all out, whether it was, getting hurt doing it, whether it was maybe a little sore and this and that, but we knew the payoff in a month, in a matter of 25, 30 days. Once we put that work in, that game was going to be a hell of a lot easier than the practices you had to endure to get there.
That's one of the times where you're glad you're on the team with those guys and not going against them. I mean, you got our whole D line, I think, from that year went to the NFL. You know what I mean? And then you got Brandon Seiler, you got Earl Everett, you know what I mean? All these different guys that were just hungry, man. And I'm telling you, man, every time he dropped back, it seemed like 2 or 3 guys were touching. And that just shows, again, the speed that we had team-wide, not just offensively, but at the same time, the talent level, the difference of the talent level. I mean, it was sometimes where I can vividly remember, like, the tackles not even touching Moss or Derek Harvey, like, not at all, just free release, and they're touching Troy.
I'll say this. The 2006 defense was the first time really in college that I got a chance to really enjoy watching your defense work. 04, when I first got to Florida, it was you get off the field, you go to the bench, you get your adjustments, you kind of take your breather.
Right.
05, I think we finally started getting a little respect for the I guess you call it quasi swagger or whatever the defense was bringing to the table, and they had a great season in 05. But 06 was one of those units that they brought the ticket to the game in 06, and we wouldn't be in that position without them. But when you watch Reggie Nelson playing center field and you got Brandon Seiler in the middle with Earl Everett and Brian Crum, and you got these guys up front, and there was some stellar talent up front on that defensive line, and about a 2-deep roster on the defensive line with Joe Cohen and Jarvis Moss and Derek Harvey, and the list goes on and on and on. It was fun to watch. It made you literally – you almost wanted to rush your position coaches like, yeah, we get it. We know our mistakes. Like, we got our adjustments, but let us go watch these guys play because they were that exciting to watch. And, you almost held your breath waiting for one of those Reggie Nelson hits or one of those Earl Everett, sacks or one of those Derek Harvey moments getting in the backfield and just disrupting the play. And in that game, it was phenomenal. You got every bit of that and more.
34-14 halftime score there. What was the mood at halftime? Of course, you had such a big lead, but you knew you were facing a very talented team, Ohio State, who've been deemed, the best team that season. I'm pretty sure it was go keep doing what you're doing, but there's got to be more to it than that.
Just keep doing what we're doing. It wasn't really much to say. I mean, we're executing at a high level early in that game, and the defense was playing so well. You got some early turnovers and things like that. I mean, just keep doing what you're doing, keep executing.
I think for us, it was one of those moments where we knew the work that went into it. We had been told for weeks, you put this work in, you're going to be in a position to be national champions. And at halftime, I think was the first time you have a second to, okay, settle your mind down, get your adjustments, think about things. But at the same time, you're also sitting there going, all right, it's making sense now. Everything we've been told is what's happening right now. And the biggest thing for us was put the foot pedal down, right? Just go straight for the neck, go straight for the jugular. Don't even take a second guess at letting these guys back into this game. And for us, I think that was the mindset going into half, and that was the mindset times 10 coming out of half.
Well, the best example of that, of course, is not long after halftime. I'm sure you guys, one of the besides like a game-winning play, one of the bigger plays in Gator football history is Earl Everett making a tackle way out of his helmet on, and pretty much speaks to what you just said, what you guys were thinking at halftime. You're that close. Go out there and put the foot on the throat here. But what was it like watching that play and the team reaction as well to that play?
It's still to this day one of the best. I guess it embodies everything about that team. And I think that's when you look back at that play, it's not that it's Earl Everett and how great of a person he is and how much he deserves that kind of spotlight at times. And man, he was one of the hardest workers, not on the defense, on that team. Still to this day, one of the hardest players I've ever had to go against in practice, whether it's in pass routes or running, doesn't matter. But I think when you look at the 2006 team, it's a microcosm of that season and who we were and what our identity was as a team. And that's what resonates with me because, every person on that team, that's how they played. 100 miles an hour from whistle to whistle, 0 to 6 seconds of relentless effort until the whistle blows and you go on to the next play. And nobody ever let off the pedal. And I think that's why it resonated most with the team because we knew exactly what our identity was.
Like you said, that play was probably the best example going and looking at what that team accomplished there. So, 2006, of course, Percy Harvin, highly recruited guy. Tim Tebow, highly recruited guy. They both of those guys come in, but you're a senior heavy team with these two high profile freshmen coming in, and they get a lot of playing time. How special were those players? From the start of the season, from the start of training camp, could you tell those two guys were going to be heavy parts of the 2006 season?
We always kept in touch with the recruiting, the rival stuff, and followed recruits. And I actually was looking him up, Spikes up. I was looking all those guys up, and I knew Percy had won a couple different state titles in track and all that good stuff there. And of course, you watch his highlights. You see that he's a dynamic player. So, I did a good job of following guys. I remember I followed Jared Faison before he even got there. So, I was real big on competition. So I was already looking guys up to see, how I could measure up against some of these guys.
I think it was before that. When you have those guys come on campus early, and Tim was one of those guys that was on campus in January and in the weight room and doing his workouts right off the get-go. I think the first time I ever really truly saw exactly what Tim was, as a athlete, as a person, etc., was his first day in the weight room, and I think he put 225 up about 26 times. And that may have been Vic Marotti, I think, told him, all right, you're good. You may never bench press again for the next 4 years. But just the intensity and the mindset, as the guys who had Urban and them the first go round of the spring in 05, it was a night and day difference for us on mental toughness, on how to approach workout sessions, on how to approach, the game. And in 06, I think the best thing for guys like Tim Tebow and Percy Harvin was all of the seniors and juniors above them that demanded everybody lived up to that standard. And now that's, obviously with Dan Mullen now, that's what we call the Gator standard. That is what it is. It's relying upon those upperclassmen to really set the bar and make sure that everybody lives up to that standard day in and day out. And, those guys had a huge impact on the younger guys that were, their classmates, right? When you look at Riley Cooper and Lewis Murphy and some of those 06 guys, they had, they had to live up to that as well. When you've got guys like Percy and Tim who are playing, those other guys, they live up to it just as much, even if they're not on the field.
All right, Tate, you guys have been through a whole lot. You in particular going through a coaching change with Ron Zook to Urban Meyer. You're being crowned national champions now. Confetti's falling, all of that. What's your thought of finally all the hard work paying off and you're hoisting that crystal ball?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is I had me and Billy Latsko talked about it after the game in the room, and rooming with Billy being a senior. I got a chance to see, man, like how much it hit him as a senior and finally get something out of it. And I think our discussion was a little bit about, could you imagine going through 4 or 5 years of this and not walking away with anything, and not walking away with a ring or not walking away with even a conference championship, the sweat and the tears and everything you put into it. And not only that, just the mentality change that you've got to go through to be a championship caliber football team. It's one thing to be in the game, but our mindset was so ingrained that we didn't ever feel satisfied with being in the position or having the opportunity. Our biggest thing was the preparation was going to be so good that when the opportunity came, there's no chance we're losing that game. And so I think to walk away knowing that we fulfilled that and we felt satisfied with where we were, that's the biggest thing. It was an unbelievable feeling. I still think it took about a week or two to sit in. I think we got back to campus and it finally hit a lot of us that, what we just accomplished was pretty big. But for the guys coming back, I know for us, it was like, man, I can't wait to get back to ball in 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get back to these voluntary workouts, because I think we knew what we were losing with all the guys that were leaving. We knew we lost Chris. We knew we lost Deshaun Wynn. We had a lot of guys that were going to be out. But at the same time, we knew what had coming back. And I think for some of us that were, juniors and now the upperclassmen, that was the biggest thing for us was we got a chance to make a run. We got a chance to win 2 out of the next 3, possibly 3 out of the next 4. And that was something I think for a lot of us drove us even more. It's like, man, we just won that. All we have to do is repeat that mindset day by day by day and continue to get better. And we're going to be in a great spot. Of course, obviously 2008 comes along down the road, but that was our mindset.
It was crazy, man. It was a real surreal moment. I could vividly remember just being in Miami and, finally being able to say we're state champions and that never being done in St. Augustine. So you accomplish that. And, I'm a football historian, so I can remember that same year watching Reggie Bush take on Texas and all that good stuff in the national title game. You snap your fingers and the very next year you're, the confetti's coming down and you win the national title. So it was crazy, man. And you're caught up in the moment a little bit. And so it's hard to kind of sit back and really take it all in. But at the same time, I remember me and Jock took our picture in front of the BCS title. And I told him, like, dude, we're just looking at this trophy the year before on TV. And, now we're taking a picture in front of it. So, you just try to enjoy it at the same time, but do your job. It was a special moment, man. And myself, I know Jarvis Moss, Reggie Nelson, Brandon Silas, some of those guys really took me under their wing and kind of showed me the ropes of college and showed me what Gainesville was all about. So, you kind of just want to repay them back and make sure you do your job to the highest level and make sure, there's no slip-ups when it's time when your number's called, because you don't want to be the guy that's called out by any of those cats. So I mean, it's special. It was a special moment, man, because you know how much they went through. Like we heard it all the time. They told us, they reminded us all the time about how it was before Irv got there. So to be able to send them off the right way, that was a special feeling as well.